Okay, you might be asking yourself, who cares if there's another invasive species? What difference does it really make? Well, you may have seen this picture of a lone frog sitting on some rocks. But if you look carefully, those aren't just any rocks. Those are actually the bones of an entire ecosystem. And as creepy as it sounds, that frog has a lot more in common with you and me than you think. In the last 500 years, we humans have caused about 40% of all animal species to go extinct. So yeah, it turns out we're pretty good at killing things. In fact, we've affected every single ecosystem on the planet, and by now, no place on Earth is truly safe from us. We humans have spread ourselves and our influence so far and wide that we've had changed the environment in virtually every habitat on the planet, from the deepest oceans to the highest mountaintops. So here are 5 ways that humans are impacting ecosystems around the world. 1. Building new habitats. As much as we like to think that we're independent creatures, the truth is we rely on our built environment. And that environment can have an impact on native wildlife. For example, over the course of their lives, many animals build multiple homes. Birds will often build temporary nests to lay their eggs in, but then they'll need to hibernate during the winter. Hibernacula or winter homes are usually underground or hidden away in some way to keep the inhabitants safe. Sometimes these homes are natural, like caves or hollowed-out logs. But sometimes the places where animals hibernate, that could mean something as simple as a pile of wood, or something a bit more complex like a bat house. These structures are made specifically to attract bats, since they love roosting in wooden buildings. And in areas where bats were close to extinction, the use of bat houses was one of the key factors in bringing them back. But not every human-made structure is beneficial for the local fauna. Many migratory birds build nests in the eaves of buildings, which can lead to dangerous situations when the building gets demolished. Fortunately, organizations have found ways to help these birds avoid such fates. They've developed artificial nest sites that can be installed in advance of demolition so that birds will hopefully choose to nest there instead. 2. Spreading diseases. There are plenty of microscopic hitchhikers that you can pick up while traveling, but you probably don't want to share your bugs with the local wildlife. Disease isn't anything new. Pathogens have been wiping out huge swaths of the population since long before humans evolved. And although there are organisms that seem basically immortal, like the Turritopsis dohrnii, also known as the immortal jellyfish, even they're susceptible to infection. Most animals have evolved alongside other members of their ecosystem and learned to live with the pathogens around them. But when a new pathogen enters the mix, the results can be disastrous. One recent example of this is the chytrid fungus. This fungus causes chytridiomyces, a deadly skin disease in amphibians, and its origins can be traced back to the pet trade. The fungus likely made its way onto the skin of African clawed frogs that were being sold as pets, and then spread from there. It's since spread around the globe and contributed to major declines in amphibian populations. Unfortunately, this isn't the only time humans have unleashed a plague on the natural world. In the late 19th century, people began noticing mysterious outbreaks of disease in American chestnut trees. At first, the damage didn't seem too bad, but within a few decades, most of the trees had been wiped out. Although it took decades to identify the cause of the blight, it was eventually traced to spores that arrived on infected trees imported from Asia. 3. Changing the climate. Humans have significantly altered the global climate in just the last couple of decades. And although we tend to focus on how our actions are changing the weather, from more intense storms to longer periods of drought, those changes have far-reaching consequences for the rest of the biosphere. Since the Industrial Revolution, we've released huge amounts of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, which have trapped more heat and caused the average global temperature to rise. Because of this, temperatures are rising faster than they have in almost 2,000 years. And although every region is warming at a different rate, nowhere is safe from the effect. As temperatures rise, Entire ecosystems can change in a matter of years. Take the taiga, also known as the boreal forest. For instance, this biome is home to about 30% of all terrestrial carbon, and it stores 3 times more carbon than the atmosphere. With increasing temperatures, the length of the growing season in the taiga is getting longer, which means the trees have more time to grow. When they grow more, they absorb more carbon dioxide. But there's a limit to how much carbon trees can suck out of the atmosphere. Once they reach their maximum size, they'll stop growing and begin releasing carbon back into the atmosphere. And once that happens, it can trigger a dangerous feedback loop. As temperatures rise, the trees get bigger. Then they start to die off and release their stored carbon, which further increases temperatures, which melts permafrost, which releases more carbon, which raises temperatures even more. And it's not just trees that can tip the balance as temperatures rise. Ice melts and exposes darker surfaces like soil and water. Darker surfaces absorb more solar radiation than lighter surfaces like snow, which means that melting ice can actually accelerate climate change for causing mass extinctions. If you think about some of the scariest predators out there, you might imagine tigers, sharks, and maybe even spiders. But compared to humans, none of these animals come close to the top spot on the food chain. We humans hunt for sport, for survival, for fun, and even for profit. And we're good at it. Our intelligence, strength, and technology make us uniquely efficient hunters. And that efficiency doesn't just apply to large animals. For example, in Australia, feral cats kill an estimated 1.3 billion animals every year. And on some islands, they've caused the extinction of up to 30 native species. But the biggest culprit behind current mass extinctions is actually habitat loss due to agriculture. In the last 500 years, we humans have caused about 40% of all animal species to go extinct. But despite the alarming statistics, there is hope. Organizations are working hard to protect endangered species from poachers, like the rangers who patrol Africa's national parks in search of ivory smugglers. They're also trying to protect their habitats, like the organizations working to restore the American chestnut. If we can keep these efforts up, maybe we can save some of the remaining species from disappearing forever. And 5, blocking the sun. Remember that frog sitting on the bones of an ecosystem we mentioned earlier? Well, it turns out that frog is part of an ecosystem located in the remote jungles of Borneo. But although this ecosystem seems untouched, it's actually been heavily impacted by human activity. You see, when the nearby palm oil plantations clear the land, the frogs move in. Oil palm plantations are extremely efficient at producing palm oil, which is used in everything from cosmetics to And as demand for the oil increases, more and more jungle is cleared to make room for more plantations. But that clearing comes at a cost. Not only does it destroy the homes of animals, it also blocks sunlight from reaching the forest floor. Without light, nothing can grow on the forest floor, which means no plants, no food, no hiding places. It's not exactly ideal if you're trying to build a life there. But even without human intervention, forests have a tough time recovering after they re-cleared, because the soil is often completely depleted of nutrients. This is especially true if the area experiences frequent fires. Some plants are able to survive fires, but after enough fires, the soil is left unable to support life. In the worst cases, it can take hundreds of years for the soil to recover, and until it does, nothing can grow. So if you want to protect local frogs from sitting on the bones of their ecosystem, maybe skip the palm oil. We can all agree that humans have had a profound impact on the planet, but the future isn't set in stone. By understanding what mistakes we've made in the past, we can work to create a better future for both ourselves and the rest of the biosphere. Speaking of creating a better future, thank you for helping to make this show. Your support allows us to explore all sorts of fascinating topics like the ones you've learned about today. If you'd like to learn more about how you can support the production of this show, head over to our support page